Who don't know me, my name is Neilia Sherman. I'm one of the Inclusion Committee co-chairs, along with my husband, Brian, who you'll be hearing from. And for the format this evening, this isn't the official start. I'm just letting you know in advance. We were going to be having two speakers. After each speaker, you will have a chance to ask questions. You can put your questions in the chat and we can read them out if you want, or you can, if that doesn't work, just put up your hand and we'll see that somebody wants to ask something. Okay, so Rabbi, do you think we should start officially now? I can't tell if people are still joining. We have 23, I believe.
Well, they can just join in when they're ready.
Well, there's Hal. Hi, Hal. Welcome to all the people who just came on, and go ahead, Rabbi.
Hi there, I was muted. Hi guys. Do it talk.
Hi, Hal. He's on
Right.
mute too.
Well, we're going to mute everybody when we start.
No, for sure.
If you want to say something, now's the time, and then later you'll get a chance to ask questions.
So should I begin now? You want me to start?
I don't even know what time. It's like people are still joining. We have 25 now.
Okay.
You can start. I guess we might as well start and try to be on time.
All right. So I'll mute everybody and unmute myself.
Okay.
Okay. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. It's a real pleasure to be able to participate in this evening's event. The idea of inclusiveness is something it's very important to us, even though I believe that we constantly need to be sensitized to it and to learn more and to find out more ways to be able to help. But this is something that in Jewish tradition is extraordinarily significant. You can find from over 1,000 years ago, you find reference to making it possible for a blind person to be able to come to shul and to get an aliyah. It talks in the Talmud about people who are missing a leg or both legs and ways for them to be able to come to shul on Shabbos when you can't carry. So they go out of their way to try to ask these questions and come up with answers with a common theme among all of them is a desire to be inclusive of people who have all types of, let's say, disadvantages or special challenges that makes it that they need to have special consideration. And clearly the Torah, the Talmud, and the rabbinic sources all agree that we have to do whatever we can certainly within the boundaries of our ability to be able to make sure that we are inclusive, that we include people who have difficulty walking, difficulty seeing, difficulty hearing, and many, many, many other things. And the wonderful thing about this group and the ability to have this evening's talk is that the need to create sensitivity in the community is extraordinarily important. Just like any other cause, the many people become sort of stale. They don't think about it. They're not fresh about what's going on, and people who might be coming into the shul that have special needs or who have special challenges. And therefore, we need to make a point to try to make sure that those people are included. And therefore, it's groups like this that can send me a message and can raise things, and the committee itself come up with ideas of more things that we can do within our community to try to be inclusive. Because as much as we want to be, clearly we are finding out on a regular basis that we're not as inclusive as we can be. And therefore we want to try to continue to do that. So I really want to commend the entire inclusion committee that our shul has, of course, with Brian and Neilia at the helm. And we certainly are very, very happy to have this committee. And the more they come in and tell me things that we need to do, the more we're going to try to do them. And within the boundaries that we have, we're going to try to do as much as we can. So this evening is an important one in that it continues to assist people in sensitizing themselves to what is needed, and to hear what's been going on with some of the people over the past year, because it's now been a year since COVID hit. And many of the people who are affected by a lack of inclusiveness are also greatly affected by what's happening with COVID. Even though all of us are affected, there are definitely these people who are seriously affected and much more seriously affected than others. And then to give them an opportunity to speak so that we can be sensitive to what they're going through, I believe is extremely important. And on that, I want to hand it back over to the Watermans, Sherman Watermans, that they should, take us on and move forward. Thank you. Now we have to unmute you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabbi. We really do appreciate that and your comments. And with that, Brian will now talk a bit about this evening's event and purpose.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm the co-chair of the Aish Thornhill Community Shul's Inclusion Committee. I hope that everyone had a festive Purim. And February is Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month. And tonight we're going to host our second annual event. We're going to celebrate by removing barriers, celebrate diversity, and connecting with our Jewish values. We're going to learn from one of our shul members, Lee-Anne Alter, and one of the Inclusion Committee members, Ira Fisher.
Okay. Thank you so much. So Lee-Anne, sorry I didn't get to chat with you. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go, and I'm going to introduce you now. Do you want to unmute yourself to be ready? Okay, great.
I'm ready.
Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker tonight, Lee-Anne Alter. Lee-Anne has been affiliated with the ATCS, that's Aish Thornhill Community Shul, for the last 19 years, and has been a proud member for the last 12 years. Lee-Anne graduated from Seneca College with a degree in office administration and has been employed by the CIBC for 12 years. She's also been happily married for almost 2 years, still a newlywed. Lee-Anne will be discussing her unique experiences with Turner syndrome, which is a genetic disorder. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak, and we look forward to hearing your words.
Thank you, Neilia and Brian, for offering me and Rabbi Rothman for offering me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. So, and for your kind words. So I'm going to just start off that Turner syndrome is a genetic disorder, and to talk this all up, this is also Turner Syndrome Awareness Month, because one of the symptoms of Turner's is also being short, and February is the shortest month of the year. So February is always, for the last few years, has been Turner's Awareness Month. So as I said, one of the symptoms is being short, and it is a genetic disorder in the sense that it's called missing an X. It only affects women because we're missing the X chromosome. And typical symptoms basically include short stature, as well as fertility issues and learning challenges and learning difficulties as well. So I'm going to be going through my life experiences. So I was diagnosed at birth because the doctors noticed that I had the classic Turner symptoms and I was shorter than the average baby. And they just told my mom, well, my parents, that they were going to be sending blood over to sick kids to get tested, and the tests came back with Turner's. So the Turner Syndrome Society of Canada was founded as one of the first Turner support organizations in the world in 1981. So my mom took me there when I was about 3, and I think she got a lot of support from that as well. And I went to Associated. I was able to handle Associated. I was also in small classes, but my math was always behind, which is also common with Turner's and part of the learning challenges that come with it. And I left the Jewish day school system in grade 7 because it was just very, very challenging. And I needed to go to public school. So I left a public school after that. And I went to Vaughan. And I graduated with honors from Vaughan. And not everybody always obviously understands learning challenges. The society has always been very helpful to me. Doctors always don't understand like the health issues that come with Turner's. Baruch Hashem, I haven't really had that many of them. I mean, I have thyroid, which is common, but then so is it common for the general population. As well as I go to Toronto General for my heart issues, but again, not major, because I know Turner's girls that have had heart surgery, and again, thankfully I have not had that. So I consider myself very lucky that way. The learning challenges have obviously, I think, been the most challenging, but I have always found that support. So I'm grateful to that. So I'm grateful for that. Being in special ed classes was certainly helpful and beneficial, and I met people that understood. My parents divorced when I was 10, and I've certainly been blessed to meet other Turner's girls whose parents have divorced as well. So I think that we understand each other. Certainly the girls that I met through the Turner's community that are my close friends have also had similar life circumstances with parents being divorced. But, we learn to, it's an adjustment when you're 10, but obviously when you're older, and it gets a lot easier as the time goes on. So, and I also got married at 40. I married almost 2 years, and it was one of the happiest experiences of my life. And I really thank the shul for their support. Everybody's really, really supportive when I met Ellie. And it's been really amazing. COVID has obviously not been easy for everybody, but I know we are all going to move past this. Now, the one thing you have to understand about Turner's is that I consider it the exact opposite of Downs, because we're missing the chromosome versus having the extra chromosome, but we're not obviously at risk of having the intellectual challenges that come with Downs. And for anybody that wants more information, I'm happy to answer any questions tonight, but also the Turner Syndrome Society of Canada has a really incredible website with a lot of the medical information, which is really good. So and I've been living at my current residence for about the last 11 years, and independence with Turner's is also not always so easy to achieve. But I'm really glad that I've been able to be in my current residence for 12 years and being as independent as I can possibly be. And without the support of my parents and my family, and of course, Aish Torah, I don't know if I would be where I am right now, but it's great to have the incredible support that I have. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, I'm ready to answer questions.
Thanks so much, Lee-Anne. And
Thank you.
did you mention that it is Turner Syndrome Month, which we're lucky we made this by the end of the month, which makes it even more important. And so many people don't know about this disorder. I know I learned a lot about it since I've known you. So I think we have a question in the chat. It might have gone directly to you. Do you?
Oh, yes, I see it right here. I'm going to click on it.
I think is it from the Goldstein family? I missed it. Where do you see it, Lee-Anne? What could you read it?
Everyone, if everyone, I just see it, your question.
Oh, it is. Okay, so this is from the Goldstein family for Lee-Anne. What do you see as your biggest challenge growing up with Turner syndrome?
That's a very interesting question. So I'm going to probably say it was always probably the learning challenges. And also I wasn't told until I was 11 that I had Turner's. So I always knew growing up that there was something that was not right about me. And when I found out that I had Turner's, I was actually very happy about it, because it put into place why I was short and why I had the difficulties that I've had up to that point. Like I would have to say again, the learning difficulties was probably the most challenging for me, as well as maybe the social issues like making friends, but certainly I would have to say academically, because I worked for every grade that I got in school. So that was probably the most challenging for me.
Well, so not knowing till you're 11, do you agree with that, or do you think you should have been told sooner?
I agree with my mom's decision because I was so much bullied, and if people would have known that, then it would have been certainly used against me. So that was, I think, probably the right thing to do. And I don't know if I would have been able to fully grasp it a little bit younger. Like at 11, I think was the right age for me to fully understand the genetics of it and understand how it would affect me for the rest of my life.
Okay. So do we have any other questions? If someone wants to unmute themselves or put up your
Yeah,
hand.
I have a question. Like, how rare is this? It's how? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, thank you.
It's 1 in every 2,500 baby girls,
100, 500?
2,500 live baby girls.
One in
Is this hereditary?
Not that anybody is aware of.
Okay, so it's quite rare. Quite rare.
There's a lot of medical research that's been done on tennis, and from what I've heard and from the conferences that I've been to, there's been no research that indicates anything hereditary.
Is there enough research done on Turner? Like, is the government or the medical system working on this, or is not in the top 10 type of thing?
I know that they've done certain studies over the years, and I know that the society is very active in promoting an awareness of it. So from what I understand, from what I hear at the conferences, from doctors that are very involved with Turner's, like they very educated with it, they say that that is not the case.
Lee-Anne, can you mention the website again for the?
The Turner Syndrome Society of Canada's website is turnersyndrome.ca.
Thank you. That's good.
So can I just sort of maybe building on the last question, so that they're not able to find any signs that say that would make one parent or parents some signs that would demonstrate that they would be at risk to
Nothing like
have
that.
and they've not developed any cause at all.
No.
They haven't been able to.
No. Not that I'm aware of, and from what I hear from the society, they're not aware of it either.
Would we say it's a genetic mutation?
It's like it's X, just like we're missing the X chromosome X.
Right, or part of it.
Part of it, like I have certainly met mosaic girls with Turner's.
Mhm.
That some of the chromosome, like their karyotype is X half, meaning that they have part of the X chromosome, or some of their chromosomes are X0 and XX. So they certainly don't have a lot of the symptoms that I have because I'm XY, I'm XX, which is classic Turner's.
Right. So there's different variations. And thank you. So any other questions at all about, maybe more about how it's affected? Like, I don't know if other people are interested, but, how has that affected employment? How, is there something that you would want people at the shul or in society to know? Because I think part of the reason we're doing this is it's hard to, you shouldn't be asking people personal questions that you meet, but people often don't get the opportunity to actually ask someone.
So I've been with the CIBC for 12 years, and the banks in general, not just CIBC, but from what I understand, all the banks are very committed to hiring individuals and supporting individuals with disabilities. So I've been very lucky that way. From what I understand, I have spoken to other Turner's girls that have, that they've been able to maintain employment, but they have had issues with certain jobs that they're not getting the right support that they need because it's a smaller company and they don't necessarily understand what is needed or what is required. But the banks are really accommodating that way. So I've been really lucky.
Has it made you any, does it make you susceptible to any other types of ailments, like vulnerable to other ailments possibly?
I don't think more than the general population. I mean, Turner's girls are certainly at risk for more things, but certainly I don't think any more than the rest of the population. We just have to be monitored a little bit more by our healthcare professionals. But I mean, I've met most Turner's girls that I met at the conferences are generally quite healthy. So So very lucky that way, yes.
And you still belong to an organization that has these conferences every so
Yeah.
often?
I mean, I don't know what they're doing this year because of COVID. I know they canceled the conference last year because of COVID, and my hunch is that they're going to do the same thing this year.
That's true. So anybody else have any questions at all for Lee-Anne? Oh, Rabbi Rothman. Rabbi Rothman says that you said you were bullied at school, and would you say you had any good experiences at school?
So yes, I always had supportive teachers, and I had a good group of friends that was very supportive of me. But in terms of bullying, I personally feel you're going to get that anywhere. Obviously, the way that I was bullied is a lot different than it would be today if there was no cyberbullying when I was growing up. So when I think of that, I consider myself very lucky that way. I mean, I know one Turner's girl that that the school was not on top of this, like Associated was really always on top of bullying when I was there. Like I know one Turner's girl, her parents had to move to another area because the school was not on top of the bullying and they wouldn't deal with the bullies. They just said, well, you know what, you're gonna have to move. And that's what this girl's mother told me. But she ended up moving to a really good neighborhood and a good school, and she made a really good group of friends there. So it was a positive decision for the family, even if her previous school didn't deal with it correctly.
That is disappointing to hear that someone was asked to move. And that's where we all have to know our human rights and fight for them. We have another question.
Alana.
What is it?
Hi,
Oh,
everybody. So, good evening. I joined a little bit late, so I may have missed this if it was said. Lee-Anne, you're mentioning Turner girls. Is it specific to girls? I mean, is it unusual voice of interest?
No. Turner's are specifically related to girls where 21 in 2,500 live baby girl births.
Okay.
If you want to repeat about the X, I don't know if everyone heard the part about the X chromosome or.
So it's called missing an X, meaning that how women are generally XX, trans girls are generally missing that X chromosome, or they're called what's called a mosaic, meaning that some of their cells are X0 and XX.
Right. Okay.
And I'm X0, I'm X because I'm classic Turner. That's my karyotype.
Right. Okay, go ahead, Brian. We have a written question here. I'm just going to read it.
What are your responsibilities at work?
No, what about, oh, you missed one.
And so I'm part of the product support team, meaning that I process transactions that come from phone and internet banking. And I've been doing that for the last 12 years. I've been in the same department. And my department was actually outsourced to India about almost 7 years ago. So I'm part of the same department, but I'm assisting my colleagues that come from within Canada in India, meaning that we print. They're processing, but we print, and whatever can't be done in India, we're doing here. So I'm a printer. So I print. And I actually started working from home about a month ago. So it's really good to be home.
Okay, we have another question.
Sure.
What should people know that would make it easier for you emotionally?
To understand that just because somebody looks different isn't a negative, and that it doesn't mean intellectual disability or anything like that. Like there's plenty of people that look different, but it doesn't mean that they have an intellectual disability. I don't want to look like I'm saying anything negative about anybody with intellectual disabilities, but obviously it applies to some people, but not Turner's girls.
So it sounds like you're saying try not to make assumptions. And
Yes.
one of the things we find with disabilities is people will make assumptions. And with many different disabilities, like they just hear a word and they make assumptions. So to follow that one up, if someone met you and they were curious or unsure, how long should they wait to be able to ask you something personal? Like, are you someone that would say, sure, ask me?
Yes, for me personally, I'm very open, so people can, I want everybody to feel free to come and ask me any questions. I'm always very open to it. I'm a very friendly person, as I'm sure most people know. But anybody who doesn't know me should always feel comfortable to ask me any questions. I'm not bothered by it, and I'm very comfortable with it.
That's appreciated.
Mhm.
Any other questions? If I'm missing, you can either speak up or type it. Any other questions for Lee-Anne? If not, we'll be moving on to our next speaker, but I want to thank you so much, Lee-Anne, and hope you stay on for the next.
I will. Thank you very much.
People have, if we have time at the end and people think at the end, we just want to make sure that our next speaker also has time, but that you did a great job, and we appreciate your openness and hope that
And
this
thank
is
you
the beginning of
everybody
your-
for taking the time after Shabbos important to listen.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is the beginning of your speaking career. Oh, I do see another question here. So girls with Turner syndrome only have one chromosome as opposed to two X chromosomes. That's correct, right? Like XO. I feel like I learned this in biology too. Because there are male disabilities where it's like Y, or I maybe saying it wrong.
There are disabilities towards men that are certainly genetic, but they're not
They're not the same.
differently than Turner's.
Different combinations of the hormone, of the chromosomes.
Exactly.
Oh, Tara Bloom is here. Oh, okay. Hi, Tara. Sorry. Thanks. Thanks for telling me who you are, Tara. Okay. Any other questions? Well, right before we move on to the next part of our evening. Otherwise, we thank you again so much, Lee-Anne, and Brian will be introducing our next speaker.
And we have to unmute Ira before we can begin.
Well, he can unmute himself, I believe.
Okay.
Or do we have mute? Well, first you can introduce him, and Ira,
Okay.
can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
And you can
I
mute.
hope you can hear me.
Okay. I'm here to introduce Ira Fisher. He's 46 years old and he's a registered social worker. He has a master's of social work from York University, and he's living with chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome. He has anxiety disorder and ADHD. In addition to being fatigued very easily and being extremely susceptible to infections, his conditions impact his short-term memory and ability to concentrate on tasks. Ira has developed numerous coping mechanisms for his myriad of symptoms. He is particularly aided by singing professionally as part of a duet with his father. And now, Ira, take it away.
Thank you very much, Brian and Neilia. The condition that has had the greatest impact on my life is the development of chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome, CFIS. I first became affected by it at the age of 21. It developed early in my final year of a 4-year psychology undergraduate program at York University. At the time, I had been hoping to apply for graduate studies in psychology. The condition came on suddenly, beginning with the symptoms of influenza, including fever, earaches, headaches, and respiratory distress. Most of all, I felt extremely tired, devoid of energy for even the simplest task. When the flu-like symptoms had abated after a few days, I tried to return to school. I would regularly walk 15 minutes from my house to get to the bus stop, but on this occasion, it took me twice as long, and I nearly didn't make it at all. Once I managed to arrive in class, I was immediately frustrated by the fact that I could not understand what the professor was saying. During my previous years in university, I was always able to take copious notes during lectures, and I would always come away from the classes with a comprehension of the main points. But here I was, barely able to understand anything shared by the lecturer or the students in my class. I had also begun practicing for the graduate record examinations, GRE, for admission to graduate school. I took a practice test for which I had diligently prepared, but I felt physically ill while sitting for it. I could not focus, and I failed the test miserably. Suddenly, I just could not get enough sleep. No matter how much I did sleep, I never felt refreshed afterwards. As well, almost everything I ate upset my digestive system. I was subjected to all manner of diagnostic tests, blood tests, x-rays, ultrasound, and the specialists I consulted ruled out many types of conditions. After I went for a psychiatric assessment, the physician with whom I consulted suggested a diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS. Incidentally, I should point out to you that it was my father, David, who actually had first indicated that I had the very same medical condition prior to my appointment, after reading numerous medical books from our home library. Some of my symptoms included impaired short-term memory, lack of ability to concentrate on tasks, extreme fatigue, susceptibility to infections, a general feeling of malaise, and a lack of digestive tolerance for many foods I previously enjoyed. Certain symptoms have improved over time, but I have limited energy on any given day, and so I have to be cognizant of what I want to accomplish and develop a strategy to ensure that I will have enough energy to complete the desired tasks. My concentration is still poor. I continue to have some dietary restrictions, and I need to eat my meals slowly. Therefore, I must budget enough time in my daily schedule to eat at a leisurely pace in order to avoid digestive distress. When I first became ill, I had to eventually agree to withdraw from all of my classes and seemingly abandon my plans to become a practicing clinical psychologist. I felt hopeless, useless, and began to despair. My first step towards recovery occurred when it was pointed out to me that I had already earned enough credits to be eligible for a 3-year bachelor's degree in psychology. This degree would be insufficient to admit me to graduate school, but it was enough to open my up to other career options. After being absent from school for close to 2 years, I made the decision to resume attending classes. I could only withstand the stress of taking one course at a time, and I needed to audio record all of my lectures to supplement my in-class note-taking, as that ability had been severely diminished. Ultimately, I chose the career path of a social worker. The social work programs were able to accommodate my unique physical needs based upon my new challenges, and still provided me with the tools necessary to help clients with their emotional and psychological issues. Despite my ongoing challenges, I was able to complete both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in social work. One positive outcome of living with CFIDs is the ability to appreciate the little things in life. I use the aphorism of quote unquote, lowered expectations equals small victories. What I mean by that is on a daily basis, being able to achieve self-care is an accomplishment in itself. I used to have boundless energy to spend throughout the day, and now I have to strategize every one of my movements. I recognize it as an accomplishment for me when I have the energy to shave, shower, stretch, and dress myself. As a result of CFIDs, I have a compromised immune system, which makes me more susceptible to contracting infections than the average person. This deficiency is most pronounced during periods of cold weather. Therefore, I protect myself by wearing many layers of external clothing. Also, on the advice of my family physician, I take numerous nutritional supplements to try to enhance my immune system. Within the last 2 years, I have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. The reality is that I have probably lived with this all my life. I think that the reason this was not noticed in my youth is that I also have obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, wherein I am compelled to aspire towards perfectionism. It was the compulsion towards perfection that probably forced me to focus my attention on instructions given in school and elsewhere, even when it was difficult for me. When the advent of CFIDs removed my capacity for obsessive concentration and my physical ability to tolerate the writing of notes, my deficiencies in attention made it extremely difficult to derive meaningful understanding from education. A frustrating complication of living with ADHD is the realization that I frequently do not process auditory information correctly. I have learned to politely seek clarification from people with whom I am engaged in conversation, even though I find this practice to be intimidating in some cases. In order to improve deficiencies in my short-term memory capabilities, I try to engage my mind as often as possible. I enjoy participating with my father in a daily study class conducted over Zoom, which discusses the teachings of the Rambam. I have also been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. I frequently anticipate the worst possible outcome for a situation, which actually makes me quite apprehensive, and I possess a lack of trust in myself that I will choose an appropriate course of action. I recognize that these concerns derive from the unsuccessful development of self-confidence and self-esteem during my formative years. I use a variety of strategies and coping mechanisms to help me navigate anxiety-inducing scenarios. One way is to use the principles of cognitive therapy. This involves analyzing a situation in order to alter my perception of it. If, for example, I have a negative interaction with a stranger, rather than accepting feelings of guilt and shame, I change my perspective to recognize that the event was circumstantial and beyond my control. This helps alleviate my natural impulses towards stress and anxiety. I also regularly engage in positive self-talk to affirm to myself that I have value and I matter. What also helps me is my unwavering faith in Hashem and an acceptance that everything happens for a reason. One of the daily quote-unquote small victories that I embrace is the ability to daven and adorn myself with tefillin when appropriate. Finally, a vital coping mechanism for me to alleviate anxiety is to sing, especially with my father David, as part of our duo, Fisher and Son, with which we have entertained a variety of audiences in a multitude of facilities throughout Ontario. To conclude, I must make all of you aware that we have actually recorded an album, but we are waiting to produce and distribute copies until COVID-19, it no longer poses an enormous threat and risk to our overall health and safety. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to my story.
That was amazing.
Thank you, Brian.
Good job, Ira. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I just wrote in the notes in case I forgot, because, you know, I have some of these similar challenges, that when I first saw your notes, Ira is the secretary of our inclusion committee. That's how we met him. And his notes are so professional, so detailed, and he remembers every single thing and includes every single thing. And I found it fascinating that what you're explaining is your disabilities affect each other as being opposite. Like, it's frustrating to have OCD and also attention deficit, and you know, I get it. And thank you for talking about a disability that a lot of people hear about, that like they throw around the phrase chronic fatigue. And I'm sure people are confused by it. I have had clients with it. I also have fibromyalgia, which is a cousin or a sister of what you have, but more pain and less fatigue from what I understand. So it's really helpful that you've given us this explanation. And now, does anyone have any questions? I'll give it back to Brian to take your questions, or you can type them or put up your hand or just, you know, unmute yourself.
I'd like to start by asking a question for parents who have young children who may have similar symptoms like ADHD. Any recommendations for where to get help and where you can get assistance at a young age?
Well, Brian, that actually is a very good question. As I indicated, I have only been diagnosed with ADHD pretty much for the last 2 years. So I never really thought that much about it. I'm sure there definitely are organizations. I myself haven't really looked into it because I take some medication. I take an antidepressant to help me. The cognitive therapy, I think, has also been a very big help with regard to not only my chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome, but also, even though I didn't recognize that I have the ADHD, it probably helped me many times when it came to being able to alter my perception of a situation. So I'm sorry, I can't really offer specific answers, but I imagine there's got to be an attention deficit disorder organization or an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder organizations out there.
Right.
I wish I could be of more help.
Somebody asked a question. I'll just read this, Laura, and then I just saw it pop up from iPhone, so I don't know who it is. How has COVID affected you, and how can the community help? That's a nice question. That's a caring community question. Did you catch that? How has COVID affected you, and how can the community, because I guess that's the acknowledgement that on top of everything else, for anyone who's struggling, COVID's another layer. So how can the community help you, Ira?
Yeah, and I really do appreciate those sentiments. It's very touching to hear how much people care, and I know overall people do. That type of empathy and compassion means so much to me. Well, COVID definitely has affected me in many ways. Certainly because of my extremely compromised immune system, I have to be extremely hypervigilant. That's how I like to term it. I don't even think vigilance is enough. When I go out, I have to wear masks. I have to wear a face shield. even then, I'm not comfortable being even, I know I repeated myself. I don't like to repeat myself. That's one of my pet peeves. But I don't like to be within 6 feet of a person, even with all of that protection and that so-called armor.
You got a Z shield from the States.
I got a Z shield from a place called Zverse or Z Shield. I actually recommend this to everybody, but you have to go on their website. It's from the United States. So everybody, a lot of people nowadays, I imagine you're wearing face shields, you know, those plastic type of shields on top of your masks. People know what I'm talking about. Well, this particular shield actually comes up. As opposed to going over your head, it comes up to your face, and it's a thicker shield. It's called Z Shield. So we would call Z Shield here, but Z Shield because it is from the United States. I haven't seen many people other than my father and myself wearing them. To be honest, I don't think I've seen anybody else. No.
And it goes down, it has
They
a
sound
And it has a mechanism so you can go down piece by piece. So if you're eating, it probably is a wonderful thing. And if you quickly need to bring it up, you just go like this to your face, and it might actually be easier. The drawback would be that if you're trying to eat with it on, you can't, as opposed to maybe if you have the one over your head. But overall, because of my immune system, I would recommend it. So
That's helpful. Do you have it nearby that you could show us, or is it out of the way? Oh, we've lost sound.
No, we've lost sound.
We can't hear you right now.
can you hear me?
Okay, now we can.
Yeah.
You hear about the Z shield?
What was the last thing you heard?
Nothing. I mean, I just asked if you had, if we could see this shield, if you have it nearby. If not, don't worry about it.
Okay, well, I could go downstairs to get it. It's not that
No.
far.
No, it's okay.
You
Okay.
sure?
Any
Okay.
other questions?
Yeah. Oh, but in terms of how the community can help me,
Oh, yes.
I guess just in understanding my situation, you know, if you were to come across me, to understand that if I sort of go bobbing and weaving, there's a reason it's not you. It's the fact that COVID-19 is extremely contagious. And I have to look out for myself, and not only for myself, but for my father, for my mother, for my aunt, my brother. My so-called bubble is very limited. It has to be. When I go shopping, I have to be extremely mindful as to what I'm doing, but I still need to do it. It gets me out. The medication has helped, the cognitive therapy. I like it. And of course, that class I mentioned with the Rambam, that's very good for my mind. It keeps my mind focused. Doing something like this, giving a talk, is very good for me. It helps instill me with confidence and self-esteem and self-worth. As I indicated, unfortunately, it's something I did not have much of growing up.
What about social contact by phone or on Zoom? Because it is sounding like this can lead to isolation. Do you find just talking to people either online or by phone is helpful? Would you want to connect with people?
That's a wonderful question, Neilia. And actually, yes, because I didn't have a chance. I wanted to try to stay within the 10-minute parameters. So I didn't have an opportunity to also express in my paper what I have been doing in order to stay sane and stable. And a very big piece of that is speaking to my friends, my family members, my acquaintances, and actually utilizing what I like to believe are God-given attributes of empathy and compassion, active listening, truly being sensitive to other people's needs. And it actually aids me in forgetting my own problems when I'm able to help other people with theirs. So that's very important to me. And that really keeps me going.
Go ahead. Some people have unmuted if you want to speak.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, Ira, I want to know, do you have ADD or ADHD? Because ADHD is more for hyperactive disorder, as opposed to ADD is attention deficit disorder. So are you hyperactive also, like running around? I know that hyperactive means like running around. a lot,
Oh,
not being able to stay in one place.
yeah. So I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry. What is your name?
My name is Miriam. I am the sister-in-law of Lee-Anne Alter.
Oh, well, Miriam, it's very nice to meet you.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the question.
Same here.
Miriam, that actually is an excellent question. I think I'm somewhere in between. I truly think it's more the attention deficit part as opposed to the hyperactivity part. But I do notice at times I can become very hyper, not so much running around, but that I'll start speaking a mile a minute. So whether you call that part of that particular condition, I'm not certain, but I do think there's an element of hyperactivity when it comes to the way that I do express this particular condition. But that's a very good point. Overall, I do feel it's affected me more with regard to the attention deficit component.
I see. Okay. Very interesting. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Is there anything else you wanted to ask?
No, I wanted to make a comment to you. I mean, Brian.
Mhm.
Yeah, can I make a comment
Sure.
in regards to Lee-Anne and Ira?
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that I also have a physical disability, nothing to do with them, but I also have a physical disability, and I find great inspiration that they're able to go on Zoom and express themselves about their disability and give inspiration to other people and tell them about their disability, because I have a physical disability where I'm on oxygen 24/7. I have
Yes.
I have lung heart conditions where I need to be on oxygen 24/7, and it's really it's like really, like say it, it's like really hard for me to be on oxygen while I'm a young mother with 2 children, and I'm married, so it's really hard for me to be living with oxygen, and I still keep with a positive outlook, and I try to do my best, live my life with happiness even with my disability. So it's extra inspiration for me to listen to these 2 individuals speak.
Thank you. Cool.
That's very kind.
Yeah, Miriam, I'm so sorry. I guess part of my condition is I don't always catch every bit of information. You might have heard that in my talk. You did indicate you're on oxygen. I am sorry for that, but I'm sorry. Did you say what your particular condition was?
No, I didn't. I have I have a bunch of conditions. It's all it's all intertwined. I have scoliosis, which turned into restrictive lung disease, and pulmonary hypertension. Pulmonary hypertension means I'm not sure if I should explain myself. I know I'm taking over your spotlight, but
No, I don't mind whatsoever. If you're comfortable stating this, again, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I'm not on the spot. I just don't want to take over from your spotlight and Lee-Anne's spotlight, because this wasn't about me.
Problem.
So, yeah, I have something called pulmonary hypertension, which means I have high blood pressure in the pulmonary arteries because my lungs are not working well. It puts extra pressure on the arteries of the lungs, and I'm not able to get enough oxygen into the heart. So the heart works harder, get oxygen from the lungs, and it makes me very out of breath. So that's why I need oxygen, supplemental oxygen, to help me get through the day and to function. Without the oxygen, I wouldn't be able to be here. I wouldn't be able to be living. Oxygen was keeps me alive, be able to function as the most normal as possible, and keep my organs functioning keep my organs functioning at the most normal level as it can with the oxygen. But it is a bit of a struggle because my oxygen is it's very heavy to carry around 6 pounds with me, and you try to do as much as I can. I live normally as much as I could. I work part-time. I try to live my life normally as much as I could. Try to keep my positive outlook as much as I could, and try to live my life as normal as possible with my disability. So by talking about disability gives me inspiration as well.
We have to move on to the next question.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Okay.
much,
Yeah,
Miriam.
thank you,
Sure.
Miriam. I think that was very courageous, if I can just say so.
Thank
Yes.
you.
I just have to read it. Sometimes I'm missing the written one, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Small writing. Okay, so there's a question for Ira from Shlomit. I have a friend who also has chronic fatigue and irritable bowel syndrome, but I didn't realize there's a link between CFS and digestive challenges. Is this always the case for people with CFS?
That's an excellent question. I can't speak for anybody but myself, but it's funny that you should mention chronic fatigue in combination with irritable bowel syndrome. There just wasn't enough room for me to mention everything that I have, but I also have irritable bowel syndrome. So I absolutely can speak to the situation with regard to that being one of my other symptoms. I mean, we could laugh at this, and I think you have to, because there's so many different symptoms, but I try to be an optimist. And I know the question, I think, was, is this common with everybody else? And well, I can't speak to that, but what I can speak to is the fact that you've got one more person here who also has a combination of chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome, who also experiences irritable bowel syndrome and different digestive issues, as well as lactose intolerance. I didn't get a chance to mention that.
I'm gonna unmute my. So Ira, I have a question. If anyone else says, try to get my attention, put up your hand. But I'm just, of course, I'm also a social worker in MSW, as you know. I'm interested in, you know, you've gone so far in the field, and I totally get the challenges of working in this demanding field while having illnesses. As you know, I can relate, and just partly the reason that I've retired. But I'm wondering, just with all the knowledge and everything you have, is there like a desire or a goal of some kind of part-time work or volunteer work or facilitation? And has there been a challenge because it's so difficult to get accommodated, even though the law is accommodation in the province of Ontario?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Neilia. Something else I forgot to mention, beyond all my social work acumen that I utilize with my friends, my family members, my acquaintances, I neglected to mention, and my father just reminded me, that I actually am a phone pal. I have a friendly visiting client. Well, it used to be friendly visiting, but for years it became a phone pal because of when I went back to school, I knew I couldn't possibly divide my energy between physically going to see him and going to school. And I had to give up actually a lot of volunteer work where I participated in an adult day program. It was a Circle of Care / Baycrest Day Center for Seniors, where I worked for about 4 to 5 years, 2011 to about 2015. And I was very proud of the work I was doing there. I ran a men's group.
Volunteer.
I was a volunteer. I wasn't getting paid, but I was volunteering. So, and truly, I have to thank my father, because he immersed my brother and myself in volunteering from a very early age. So we used to work with children from Bloorview, now Hollandview, Bloorview Children's Hospital. So those with physical disabilities, neurological disabilities, such as cerebral palsy, with senior citizens who were in nursing homes when they had second Passover. When movie theater, we went to Paramount Canada's Wonderland. So I think I've been volunteering all my life. So much of that is thanks to my father. The volunteering continued, as I said, between 2011 to 2015 with the adult day program. Simultaneously, I was also a friendly visitor with my now phone pal. So in terms of the field, because I think you're asking me with regard to with accommodations, if I understood you correctly, if I could work in the field. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. Or right, some type of role. Like I'm wondering if it's something you want, if you've thought about getting accommodations, you know, it's just, you know, we all have passions. Volunteer work is a way to fulfill that passion, but I was just wondering if you've attempted that.
I actually have. I belong to an organization. It's called the Spinal Cord Injury of Ontario. Now, please don't let that be a misnomer. They truly take on anybody with a physical disability. Now, in my case, my physical disability is chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome. So you don't necessarily have to have a spinal cord injury in order to be affiliated with that organization. So I took a number of different courses in order to gain motivation, confidence, skills that would help me with my resume, to reflect on my disability when going for a job interview. I've tried. I actually did go for a job interview a couple years ago. It went very well, contrary to what had happened to me in the past. It went so well that I got the job, but the problem was the job didn't take off. What it would have involved was working over the computer with a headphone, talking to people who, senior citizens, trying to help them stay in their homes. So we talk about the atrophy of minds. I don't want my mind to atrophy. And the idea is we didn't want their minds to atrophy, to become worse. So in order to prevent that, I would have been reading stories to them, and then they would have been trying to answer questions based on, well, maybe the questions I'd pose to them, and they would answer it, and this would keep their minds sharp. It didn't work out, but I was very proud of the fact that I had earned the job. After that, I got a job with a company called Fable Tech Labs, Inc. What happened there, partially to do with COVID, things fell apart. That was over the computer, where I would engage with companies that were providing websites. And because of my cognitive neurodiversity, with respect to my various disability issues, I would try to tell them, well, what is it like for someone like me going on their website and trying to navigate through that? I was able to do that a little bit. I made some money, but what happened is they did an overhaul of their website, and that worked against me. And with COVID, well, it hasn't been easy to go back to it. I still think I might approach them again once COVID's finished, once it's under control. So I think that's the best way I can answer it, other than to say the type of job I require, because of all of my conditions, because of my overall apprehension and anxiety and my fatigue and my tendency to have very little energy at any given time, I feel I need a job that is an entry-level position. It would have to be part-time, like you mentioned, Neilia. And it would require a situation where people have a lot of patience with me. I probably couldn't be forced to do things quickly, because that would just exacerbate and be counterintuitive to all of my conditions. So if I could find that type of perfect scenario with an entry-level position, they accommodate my needs for part-time, they don't pressure me to do things quickly, but you allow me to talk on the telephone like I'm doing now, but actually get paid for it, that would be a fantastic opportunity.
We have a question from Ivor.
Do you want to ask it, Ivor? I want to hear your voice. Oh, okay. Let me just tiny writing. Do you feel, Ira, that over time that you are coping better or worse, or is it sometimes better and sometimes worse?
I wonder if that's our friend Ivor.
That's your friend.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well, I miss seeing you. We both miss seeing you, my father and I, Ivor.
Miss singing to you, Ivor.
Yes. And that is a very good question, Ivor. In some ways, I think my anxiety at times has gotten worse, that I perhaps get more apprehensive than I used to. So I really have to try to utilize that cognitive therapy as quickly as possible, Ivor. In terms of the chronic fatigue and my ability to do things, I would say over time, because of the fact when I first got this, I wanted to sleep all the time. Now, I still need a great deal of sleep. And with COVID, it's sort of hard to tell where I'm at, because everybody is almost in a standstill. But I want to believe that my belief in Hashem, my unwavering faith, and my praying has definitely helped me emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and then I feel in a positive osmosis type of effect carried over physically. So I think that's the best way I can really answer that question. And I hope that helps.
Thank you. Laura, did you have a question? I just thought because you unmuted a while ago. And
Oh, no, I just had a comment. Someone was asking about how someone gets diagnosed early on. And
I asked the question.
huh?
I asked that question for
Yeah,
him.
yeah. And so Ira didn't have a answer. And I just know from, having gone to school after my car accident with learning difficulties, that usually the tendency is teachers pick up on, someone having trouble in school and will often recommend that they have a psychoeducational assessment, or in my case, although I didn't have that until an adult, a neuropsychological assessment, which will be helpful for identifying what the issues are and recommend strategies as well as the use of adaptive technology.
Oh, that's a very good point. So you're talking about with regard to the ADD, ADHD, Laura.
Yeah, just in terms of like with Fable Tech Labs, I'm also affiliated with them. I'm a tester of websites as well because I use Dragon.
Oh,
and
okay.
I test it for accessibility using voice recognition, but it's very occasional work. It's not like on a regular basis, and things have certainly been turned upside down because of COVID.
Oh, so even for you. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm unemployed and I've been looking for work probably since I finished undergrad, and I'm overeducated because I used education as a mechanism for opening new doors and breaking down barriers. But I don't keep pace with society is moving too quickly.
Right. So Laura, is your name Laura?
Yes.
Yeah, Laura, I want to point out something to you. When I was young, I actually saw a psychologist on quite a regular basis because I was very quiet. I would say extremely introverted. Not as much anymore, although naturally, being the way I am now, I've truly had to force it in some ways. I've had to come out of a shell, but I would definitely say I was in a very big shell. I didn't think my opinion mattered. I never put my hand up. Maybe everyone just thought I was incredibly shy, which I was. And I think I did go for some kind of psychoeducational assessment. But like I said, maybe the OCD in combination with the ADD, ADHD masked what was going on with me.
It's
so
very
people,
possible.
That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure, but that's what I think. Yeah.
It's like you said, your experience is unique. There's a lot of heterogeneity, like, among people with similar conditions. Like there's a general consequences of the health conditions that you live with, but at the same time, there's uniqueness in how you adapt and how you perceive the world. And that's also reflected in the supports and resources that you have. And it sounds like your family is very supportive, which is what I had growing up.
I just wanted to add that one of the only good things about COVID is that the world has learned that people can work from home, and things that I was denied and fought for years now, everybody basically is allowed to do that. And I think society has learned to think a bit more outside the box about work. Most jobs right now that you apply for might have a work at home component. So it's a good time to take advantage of that.
Most of it is remote, but it's going to change. It's definitely, once we come out of this, the workforce is going to not look the same as what we had before.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I did really, they'll never be able to say again, it's impossible to do your job from home, which I had heard for many years until the last year. And actually, it's possible to do a lot of things. The reason I brought up accommodation, Ira, is I've taught it. I've also fought for it. So I'm just saying, with any position that you get, you can always ask for accommodations once you have the position. And that is the law. It doesn't always work as well as we hope it will.
Well,
So we've been on for quite a while. It's about 9:40. We were thinking of wrapping up, but still the rabbi had to leave. But if he leaves us on, we can still chat informally if people want to. We would like to thank both of the speakers and all of the participants for taking part tonight and for your rapt attention. We wanted to let people know that we're happy to organize more events, and if anyone else wants to discuss their experience with disability, we believe that respectful and open dialogue is what's going to help us remove barriers and stigma. So thank you so much, Lee-Anne, and thank you so much, Ira. You both did it. Oh, somebody's saying something.
and if you need help, Neilia and Brian, you know where I am.
Yeah.
Well, you can always join our committee. We don't
Yeah.
meet that often, but it's been a while. Yeah, so the rabbi said great event, and Barbara said thank you so much. So if people want to unmute and chat and have a free for all,
Yeah.
that's fine with us.
Yeah, Neilia, Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're welcome. This was a pleasure. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My father actually got the mask. I want to show it to everybody.
Let's see, yes. Oh, yes.
Can you see it?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to show it coming down as well. Just a
Goes
minute.
around your neck.
Yeah, it goes around your neck. Oh, actually, let me show you.
So what's the benefit of it? Just keeping.
You see, it goes around your neck, and then you actually go like this, 2, 3,
Oh,
might
I
be a
see.
4. 4. Yeah, I don't want to break it. Yeah, I think it goes 4. And then if you have to quickly bring it up, like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's a much thicker than the ones that go over your face, go over your head.
Well, we're glad that you've stayed healthy, and obviously all your strategies are helping.
They also have the ones with glasses because I can't have pressure on my head. So I don't know if anyone has seen that one, those.
Laura, would you be able to put pressure on your neck or not?
No, I can, but I've got the ones my former PhD supervisor, we got together before the initial lockdown, and she had one that they're like, they have arms. It's a shield with like glasses, so I can put it over my glasses, because the ones that have the one that you put over your head, I can't wear anything on my head.
Oh, do you have the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, she gave it to me, and then I ordered a few.
Would you be able to demonstrate it right now?
Yeah, I can go get it. One second.
In the meantime, I'm sorry, Nora, did you want to say something?
1 minute.
I just wanted to say thank you very much, Brian and Neilia. This was amazing, and thank you so much to Lee-Anne and to Ira for giving us so much information tonight. You guys are great, and we are just so very happy that we had this opportunity. Here comes David just to say hello, and then we both are going to say goodbye.
Hi, David.
Hi, David.
Were you listening?
They were so intelligent,
They're
you know?
still on. They're still on.
Oh,
Thank you
okay.
so
Thank you so much.
Go
very
ahead,
much.
David. Say what you think. You can say it to them. They're
No,
intelligent.
very intelligent, very well spoken, and they're both our role models. Very role models for all of us to go by.
So it's this one?
Thank you.
Kind of you to say, David and Nora. We appreciate your coming.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much. I'm
You're
going to
welcome.
say
It's good
good
to see you
night.
guys.
Good
Take
night.
care. All the best.
You hear
Thank you,
me?
Nora. Thank you, David.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Be
But
well,
let's put my
guys.
headset back on.
Hey, David, see my
One
COVID
second.
beard? It's 1 year ago.
That's a COVID beard, all right.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking you look different. Like you look different.
You look good.
You look like
Yeah,
Fiddler
Jewish
on the
Santa
Roof.
Claus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it looks good on you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kathy. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
We're just
All right,
getting a little
good
messy.
night.
Good night,
Take
everybody.
care. Good night.
Well, Laura wanted to show us.
So this is
This
this
is good
one.
for everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Can
me?
you see through it well,
Or
Laura?
am I, oh, I'm on.
Can you see through
What's
it?
going on?
She doesn't. She can't hear us.
Oh, Laura, can you hear us?
Hello? Okay,
Yeah.
do you hear me
Well,
now?
anyways, we get the gist of it.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think
so,
yeah.
so I've got this one.
Oh.
She left it with me because I didn't know there was one like this, because the other one I can't wear.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
seen those.
so does it go on with glasses?
How do you
So-
sign out? How do you like?
Leave?
Yeah, it must not go over the head. It
Any-
must-
You
yeah.
want to leave?
Anybody else want to say anything before we end? Do you guys want to keep chatting or should we say goodnight?
Glasses or something.
Does anybody else have a final word or question?
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. And thank you, Laura, for speaking a little bit about your situation.
Yeah, well, I thought, I know about like I know about assessments for like younger children, and when I went back to Associated, I had trouble learning, so my time there was cut too, but yeah.
I don't even know how to close this.
So
Okay.
I wanted to say
Miriam,
something
Brian,
quickly.
Well, it's very valuable information, Laura. Thank you very much.
Yeah, what we can do is just like say goodbye and then everybody leaves, basically.
Then we're all alone. Yes.
Yeah,
And
so
Can I
like
say something quickly?
yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah. And
sorry.
so David and Ira, I really miss praying next to you at Shul. I understand why you can't come, but hoping sometime, we'll be able to pray together again, and you can continue to be a role model for me on how to daven with the kavanah.
Oh,
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you very much, Ivar. It's very
sweet.
special.
Well, we miss everybody and it's great
Yeah.
to see your faces for sure.
Mhm.
Well, I did my
Be well.
nice silly little camera. Thank you,
Huh?
Miriam, Brian. It was wonderful. And
That's
Ivar.
it was great to hear from everybody about what they're dealing with, what they're coping with. I mean, it was amazing, Ira, to hear what happened. Do you think that these autoimmune problems or various problems might have been triggered by a virus or very bad illness?
I see. So that question is directed to me?
Yes.
Okay. That's an excellent question. I'm sorry. What is your name?
I'm Nisa. I'm actually Nelia's cousin, Nelia and Brian's cousin.
And
Oh,
Hal's
Lisa.
cousin. Hal's on too.
And Hal's cousin, yeah, Hal and Leah's cousin too.
Everybody's cousin.
Right.
So Nisa, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. To be honest with you, I think I always had a predilection to this particular condition, chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome. What I mean by that is even growing up, I had severe allergies as a child, so much so that I used to get terrible earaches and very high fevers.
Right.
And what happened is in 1995, October 13th, I don't think I'll ever forget it, at least not at this point, I had a flu shot. Now, I had never had a flu shot in my life. Now, by no means am I telling people don't get flu shots. I'm not going to do that. I just know what happened to me. And after I had this flu shot, everything went haywire. So that's just me speaking personally, that everything seemed to stem from this particular flu shot. And I did find out that when it comes to an inoculation, Nisa, it is possible that an inoculation like a flu shot could precipitate a condition like this.
Okay. Really.
And in fact, this particular condition.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people with autoimmune problems are very concerned about the vaccines for COVID and the variants
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going to be happening with them yet. And I know my rheumatologist is waiting for more information from Europe, as she says, just to see how people who have autoimmune problems and have been inoculated there, how they're dealing with it, how they're coping with it, if it's changing anything, making them worse, or having no reaction to it at all. So I think that you know, problems can arise from inoculations, from flu shots, and especially the COVID vaccines. I think people are pretty nervous about it, anybody with an autoimmune problem.
Well, it's new and it hasn't been tested. Like usually, you know, it takes 5 to 10 years of clinical trials to establish efficacy. And even though a lot of people have been tested, it's still too new.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and I've had the flu shot because I've had pneumonia and I've had asthma, had pneumonia multiple times, and I'm very leery about it.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess we have to wait and see what happens in Europe, as my rheumatologist says.
well, and Israel's being the guinea pigs because they made a deal with Pfizer.
That's right. So everybody's watching Israel, that's for sure.
That's
you know,
right.
when they can practically write their own research paper based on, you know, they don't need Pfizer, even though they're using that vaccine.
Right.
Someone asked me if I know about when I'm getting my vaccine for having MS, but we don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
My brother doesn't even know, like when he, you know, like first he was gung-ho, and now he's not, because he feels like it's too new and they're pushing it. My brother's a family doctor. And like I said, my brother is pro-vaccines, but this one,
Do you think it's because it's been sort of rushed through?
Well, it's rushed, and also the technology that they're using, they've never used before. Like it's not traditional. I know people, you know, and I've got friends who have never had flu shots, or, you know, they have a sinus condition or whatever, but I don't want RNA in my system. Like my neuropsychiatrist says that because of the sequelae that I'm living with, that, you know, I should definitely have the vaccine, and he can hardly wait to get it. And I'm like, I'm really like COVID itself has attacked the brain of many of young people and middle-aged people, causing symptoms similar to a minor traumatic brain injury. So insomnia, difficulty concentrating, and other brain fog in some individuals. So symptoms characteristic of a stroke. And
They're also saying that about people who have had COVID, that their brains aren't working right, that they're.
Yeah, I'm not saying with everybody, but there are people like in their 20s and 30s and even 40s who have had residual consequences that they're living with, and there's no treatment for. And there's been
long haulers.
Yeah, there's a support group in Canada, and I signed up just because I was concerned about those who have the minor traumatic brain injury symptoms. You know, they feel like they're just starting their life, and what are they going to do?
Right.
You know, it's horrible. Like,
I know. Just we're afraid of that. We're afraid of everything. COVID, the variants. We're afraid of the vaccines. You know,
but we still have to live. Like Ira, I know you go out. I go out too, and I've had a few friends say you should stay home. I do a combination of online orders, but I need to get out. My outing for the week is going to the dollar store. I'm in a certain geographic area that I limit myself to.
That's right. That's right. That's the same for me. I stay in the car. I say to my husband, I have to get out. We go for a drive. I stay in the car while he goes shopping or whatever, but at least I'm not in the house.
You can't be locked in because it's.
I know.
We're all gonna go nuts. Like.
I agree.
Matter of your mind.
Hello?
You know?
Yeah, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to just let people know that I already got the shot. I got the first dose. And
Yeah.
thank God I did not have any symptoms. I was fine. I mean, it's fine right away.
Usually after the second dose, I'd love to hear, how that
Okay.
goes.
I mean, I didn't really have any major symptoms. Maybe I felt a
That's
little bit nauseous, and like later on I felt like out of it, like very tired, but nothing really major affected me. Thank God. I need to get the vaccine.
Sorry.
Because of my high risk
Where did my
medical
headphone go?
conditions.
Where did it go?
Okay.
We only have 6 million doses of Pfizer and Moderna. There's 38 million people in Canada. And if we get the Pfizer and Moderna, we should be happy because the rest, only 60% works. If somebody gets COVID, the side effects is very harsh for a lot of people, and we can't go back.
That's good. Good to know.
6 million dosage. We don't have the good ones. Trudeau didn't buy enough of Pfizer and Moderna. If you can get that one, that's good. But the rest, Johnson and Johnson, 60% works. The other ones, AstraZeneca, it doesn't work as well as the Pfizer and Moderna. The mRNA has been studied a while ago. And the thing is, Trump did a fast test. There was a lot of people being tested, and that amount of tests was done in 1 year that was supposed to be done in 10 years. He used the same amount of people. The scientists used the same amount of people, what they did in the 10 years. They had to. People are dying. They had to do it. So I'm sorry. So that is,
I just wanted to wrap things up and to let everybody know that we've recorded tonight's session, and we'll be able to, if people want to watch or send this session to other people, I'll send the link to everybody. And thank you all for participating. It's been amazing, and we're hoping to do several more of these.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Very nice, Brian.
Thank you.
You too, Nelia, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Where is she?
She had to go to the washroom.
Oh, I don't need to know that, Brian. Just
You
she had to
asked
step
for it.
out. Yeah, I know I asked, but you can just say
Inquiring minds want to know. Yeah.
you can just say she stepped out for a minute.
Yeah, TMI, Brian, TMI.
Okay.
All right, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night,
Bye.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you to everybody for sharing.
Okay.
Takes
Bye.
Thank you very much, Ira.
Bye,
You're
Lee-Anne.
welcome.
Everybody.
Ezra. Okay. I'm
Bye-bye.
going.
Ezra's still there? Yeah, Ezra is.
Yeah, I'm here. How's it going?
Yeah.
Thanks for a great meeting here. It was very, very informative, and everybody was very articulate, and all the input of the extra people, and it was very good. I'm very glad I was part of it. Thank you very
I
much.
heard your voice, and now I see your face.
Yeah, someday we'll see you in shul again, maybe.
Okay.
When it's safe to do so.
Sure.
Yeah.
I actually went to hear Dr. Bernholtz do the Megillah on Thursday night at 8:00 in shul. I was one of the 30 guys that made it to the main sanctuary. It was
Probably
great.
let you have 30.
Yeah.
Dr. Bernholtz dressed up as a penguin.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is that from Batman?
I don't know if it was from Batman, but he dressed up as the penguin before.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. See you.
Have a good one.
Our next meeting. We'll let you know when the date will be.
All right.
I see Yanko. Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Which one's your uncle?
Yanko, remember we went to their house? They invited us for a
Okay,
Shabbos
right,
dinner.
yeah, the one from Ottawa.